No more hiding or people pleasing. No more being sidelined in your own life. It's time for us to be brave, to claim our gifts and quirks and emotions. You are set free and set up and on fire. Hey, it's Heather Chauvin, wife, mother of 3 boys, former social worker, breadwinner, recovering hustler, and stage 4 cancer survivor. I'm not a fan of that term, by the way. Beyond all of these titles and labels, I'm a human being, just like you, attempting to navigate it all while feeling good. My goal on this podcast is to show you that you can live an energized, sustainable life both at home and in your work. It doesn't matter if you stay at home full-time, if you work from home, you're a CEO, a successful business owner, or trying to find some inspiration. On this show, I attempt to keep it real with stories, interviews, and random thoughts. This is not a business or career podcast, and it's not a parenting podcast. It's both and so much more. You will laugh. You may even cry, and you may even get a little frustrated with the truth you've been hiding from yourself. I believe all human behavior is a language, whether it's through your child's behavior, your health, or a relationship. And when we learn to listen instead of react, we begin to understand what it truly means to feel alive and in control. It's time to put your big girl pants on and find your brave. Let's go. All right, ladies, I am back, and today I'm super excited to share today's interview with you. It is with Jen Hatmaker. She is the author of Fierce, Free, and Full of Fire. And this is a guide to being the glorious you. And I'm really, really interested in what you think of this conversation. This past year, writing the manuscript for my book that is coming out in February, more details to follow. I may need your help shortly on Instagram, so go find me at Heather Chauvin _ on Instagram. I'm going to be revealing the book title, and I'm going to be asking, not the book title, the book cover, and asking a poll of the community what you ladies think. So anyways, back to this. So Jen, she's written several books, New York Times bestsellers, for the title For the Love and the Mess and Moxie. She's the host of the For the Love podcast, which has won a whole bunch of awards. She speaks all over the country, and she's also the creator of the Jen Hatmaker Book Club, which is absolutely amazing. So go check out her website, jenhatmaker.com. She's been on Rachel Hollis's stage. She is a well-known friend and colleague of Brene Brown, and she is a mother to 5 children. And she has a really, really interesting story. And what I love about Jen is she is authentic, she's real, she's open. And even when you listen, I listen to audiobooks. So when I listen to her audiobook, you just get this sense of like, this is who I am, take it or leave it. She has a really interesting background on speaking her truth and literally having to burn it down to the ground to become the woman that she knew she is on the inside. And I think this is really, really a really important conversation that we need to be having. As I was writing my book this year, it is revealed to you very, very quickly on what your values are and what your message is. And although I started this podcast and my message with parenting and conscious parenting and helping women understand their children's behavior on a deeper level, the more and more I talk to women and the more and more I do this work, the more I realize this has nothing to do with understanding our children, and has everything to do with understanding ourselves. And the more we have the courage to ask ourselves, what do I want and who do I want to be in the world, the more we begin to realize that we are here for a bigger purpose. So I'm calling you. I'm calling you to rise. I'm calling you to show up. You don't need to know how. You don't need to know how to solve this problem, but I really do want you to just ask yourself, what is my next best step? All right, let's dive in. So again, you can find her at jenhatmaker.com. And a quick reminder for anyone who is listening and you've been on the fence thinking about mastery or Mastery 2.0 business, you can head on over to heatherchauvin.com/takebackcontrol. It's a very simple application. And there is a video on that page that talks a little bit about Mastery and Mastery 2.0. So it gives you an idea of the community and, the problems that it solves and how I run the community as a leader. And if your heart and your soul, any part of you is saying, I'm curious, can this be, I really value Heather's, opinion and advice, and I'm connected to it, and I've been wanting to do this, all you have to do is simply fill out that application. So heatherchauvin.com/takebackcontrol. And once you fill it out, I personally review it. And then if you're a good fit, we get you on the phone for an introductory call with somebody on my team. It's as simple as that. There's no financial obligation. What you're saying is yes to the universe and yes to yourself. A lot of times when women come to me, they are in a crossroads or they are just ready for the next level of their lives. So most likely, you may have been feeling, if you're feeling pulled to fill out this application, you may feel like a black sheep in your family. You may feel different and unique. There may be a strong desire inside of you to make a bigger impact. There may be a strong desire inside of you to, heal these generational wounds, to figure out how can I parent more consciously, but how can I live more consciously and feel alive as well. So again, head on over to heatherchauvin.com/takebackcontrol, and let's dive into the conversation with Jen Hatmaker. All right, Jen Hatmaker, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you.
So I'm excited to have this conversation. Before I hit record, I'm like, these ladies just like real and raw. And I have been listening to your book, and I don't want to screw up the title, Fierce, Free, and Full of Fire.
There it is. I tried to name my book something both impossible to say and remember. And I just really feel like I nailed it. I just feel like I did it. Yeah. We call it the F book. Internally, my team, we just call it the F book. So that's just easier. It's shorthand.
And what number? This is like, how many books have you?
This is my 12th.
Your 12th book.
Yeah. It's real dumb.
Real dumb?
I write 12 books, right? I just can't believe it. Every time I think about it, I want to just crack up laughing. Like, what in the world?
Now, when you're on book number 1, were you like, okay, I don't know what else I'm going to write? Or like, once you start the creative process, you're like, shit, here's another one.
Totally. I mean, I just had no idea I was going to be a career writer. I was a teacher. And so, but I'd always loved to write. I just lacked the imagination to even envision that could be my life's work. I thought that was like a fake job, like being a belly dancer or something. And so then when it just slowly developed into a real, like legitimate, bona fide career, I mean, you could have knocked me over with a feather. I'm still shocked. That's why I just said it's so dumb. Because when I hear my mouth say, this is my 12th book, I just want to laugh. It's incredible.
So, okay. So of course I have ideas of where this conversation is going to go, but I would just like to start there because women, myself included, if you would have ever told me that I was going to write a book even 5 years ago, I'd said, you're crazy. I have horror stories in my mind of spelling my name incorrectly and having to verbally do my dictation and, the ache inside of you that's like, this won't go away. This won't go away. And I would love to have that conversation because when people are like, I'm just stuck. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. How do you lead into that? What's inside of you and pull that out and express that in the world when it's going to be so messy and unpredictable?
I could talk about this for a million hours. I think if I was going to key into one big idea, what the women in my community tell me who are right there where you just described, just kind of locked up, somewhere very much at the starting line, which is a hard place to be, because it's such a weird time right now, because we can look sideways at everybody halfway through their race or damn it at the finish line. And so we're constantly wanting to compare our beginnings to somebody else's middle, or somebody else's 10 years in, or 20 or 30. It's just not fair. It's like a rigged game. But I think what I want women to acknowledge, if this can be a starting place, it's simply that whatever that thing is, like you described it as an ache, which is a great word. That's a great word. There's something just like it's begging you to bring it forth. Like, put your hand to this, put your time and energy on this. This is your work. This is your gift. This is your offering. I would just tell women that even if not one molecule of that has manifested yet, not one, it just lives in your heart, you're worthy of it. Like, you're worthy to create it. You are worthy to bring it forth. Nobody, literally, I promise you, I know you think that this is not true, but nobody is more qualified or capable than you are to do it. They're not. I know that you think that. It seems that way because we're looking at people who've already started. But you are worthy of the thing inside of you. And frankly, it's your responsibility. This is your work to do, and that ache will not go away, and nobody else can do exactly what you do in the way that you do it. And so it's kind of an excuse to say, oh, my book's already been written, or my business has already been started. My art has already been created. My idea has already been innovated. Well, you know what? It hasn't. That's just not true at all. That is not true at all. There is some type of imprint that only you can make on your work. And so the rest of us are just waiting. And so you're worthy of it. And if you can just start there, then we're all capable of doing like the labor of bringing it to life. That we can do. We're very, very smart, able women. But I think it's that permission at the beginning to say, yes, this is mine and I will do it.
Okay. Permission to do it. But there was something that you said, and I can tell because you're saying it with conviction. This is your work. Like, we are waiting for you.
Right.
When you get that little something inside, the switch goes on, you're like, shit. Now you're looking at it. You're like, I can't turn away. I don't know when I had that moment, but this is a responsibility. I can't hide anymore.
Yeah, that's so good. Like, I love it when women start believing that, and they stop seeing themselves as a fraud, asking for something they don't deserve, as an imposter, putting their hand to work that they're not capable of doing. That's just garbage. All that is garbage. I love it when women are all of a sudden like, no, this is needed. This is necessary. This is my work in the world. And I mean, are we seriously going to argue right now that the world has too much beauty in it? Is that what we're saying? Like, there's just too many women out there creating amazing things, like, let's get serious. We need all the innovation and all the joy and all the literature and all the new business and all the art. Like, we need 10 times as much as we have yesterday. So there is room. There's always room. It does not divide. I'm telling you, just all this creativity, it multiplies, and we need it. And it's good for the world, and it's good for us.
Yeah. Do you remember your moment like that when you're like, this is my work?
So one thing that's really weird. So you're doing it opposite. I was the inverse of you. I wrote first, and then that's my first love. That's probably my highest gift. But then what happens is you write a book and everybody's like, oh, can you come speak at our thing? Can you come be a teacher or a speaker? And I'm like, I don't know. Do you think I can? Did somebody tell you that I can? Because I don't know. That's not a thing I've ever done. And so for me, that side of things, kind of the public facing live speakery thing, was not expected. I didn't know that was going to go with a writing career. And then, of course, then shortly thereafter, sort of the advent of social media. So I started before there was a single Facebook page in existence. And so then it was like, also, you need to be good at social media. And so I had to develop muscles for work that I didn't necessarily feel qualified for. So I think for me, ironically, there was a season of being in a live room with women, and I'm nervous as hell. Like that is not. I still am a nervous speaker. I go up. If I showed you my notes that I take on stage with me every single time, it's just ridiculous. It looks like it's practically scripted out. I'm so nervous to not have all my thoughts in front of me written down. But something about being in the live room, because being a writer is so solitary and weird, and the women and the energy and the facial expressions and the body language and this just shared communal female power. I was like, oh, damn, like here's my work. Like, this is my work. These are the women that I am serving. Like, this is what I am here to do. Because with a book, you put it out there, but you're never looking in the face of your reader.
Right.
But the live room, ironically, set my purpose kind of aflame. And I miss it. I miss, when do we get to be together again?
I'm so highly introverted, but I love connection. My husband and I drove 2 hours, well, family, the boys too. We drove 2 hours on Father's Day because he wanted to eat at a restaurant. So everyone's like wearing a mask.
Totally.
And then we had the experience and I'm like, okay, let's go home. I'm done. I'm done. I've had enough. I'm like, there's an integration process. Yeah.
Ironically, I am a textbook introvert too, which is something I only discovered about 5 or 6 years ago and made incredible sense of my feelings that I did not know how to sort out, because I kept thinking I'm a bad person. Like, I can no longer be around all these people, or I have run out of gas. And I just thought, oh, this is what I'm here to do, is like serve. And then did you ever read Quiet by Susan Cain?
I've read pieces of it and I've heard, yes, everyone raves about it. Yes.
And I felt like I was reading my biography. It was the weirdest thing in the world to discover that I was introverted, because I highly value connection, same as you.
Yeah.
And I love people.
Or people think because of the personality that they would expect extrovert. Yeah.
Yeah. No, hardcore introvert. And so parts of the quarantine life, I'm like, well, this is just my dream. This is my dream life.
Yeah.
But I have discovered even this introvert is like, I miss people.
Yeah.
I miss a room full of people. It's powerful to be together.
We forget that we're designed for connection, right? We are created for that. So let's talk about that connection, community, women. Yeah. I know you have a diverse experience in different communities. I've been obviously listening to your book, but also listening to you on different types of podcasts, right? Where you're having different conversations. So maybe giving those who are listening to you and maybe hearing about you the first time, where you started in your career and community and connection and how that's evolved.
Sure has. Which is great, by the way. I love evolution. I love growth. I love change. None of that scares me. I
think it's boring to not grow, by the way. Like, it's
boring. And it's not a sign of health. No. If I'm thinking and all the same things I thought 10 years ago, I've just not been paying attention, So first of all, I'm a person I'm very interested in like growth and evolution and what that can look like in an adult life. So I'm always proud of women who decide to embrace that. But for me, I built the beginning bits of my career inside a very specific subculture, which was, it was like the evangelical, like Christian women subculture. It's a thing. Okay. It is. It's its own little ecosystem. It has its own rules of operation. It's a deal. And so that's just what I knew. That's kind of how I grew up. And that was sort of my childhood and my young adulthood. So that was a community that made a lot of sense to me, because it was just the one I knew. My experience up to that point had been incredibly homogenous. So very same, very much surrounded by people who more or less were just like me in every way. And so I began to build a career over there to great success. It was working. I was a darling. And had a lot of momentum there and a lot of favor. I'm a great prototype for success over there. I hit all the marks just right. The right look, the right personality, all of it. But what happened for me is that as I just lived longer, and my perspective widened out, and my worldview was challenged, and more diverse people were coming into my community, into my life, into my heart, that so many tenets of that subculture for me were challenged. And I started having some mega cognitive dissonance, where I thought, I don't believe some of this anymore. I don't agree with a ton of this anymore. I am inside of a system that in many ways it was built on injustice and hierarchy and patriarchy. And so that created a real problem, as you might imagine. And so I got to a point where I just couldn't hold the pieces together anymore. I was too fractured. I had too much personal disintegration, because I needed to continue to follow the rules of the subculture in order to protect my belonging there and my status, and my favor, because that's the requirement. That's the price of entry, which is unanimity and agreement. And then the very, very first thing that's going to be revoked when you challenge that is your belonging. That's the punishment. And I knew it. That's not a mystery. A lot of subgroups work like that, by the way, not just mine. A lot of niche groups have their own rules and their own way that women can or cannot fit inside of them. Maybe that's your corporate culture or your family, even hell. Sometimes it's your region where you live. So that's not just unique to that space. That's just the one that I was inside of. So anyway, I broke rank and my convictions led the way. I've said before, but I got to a point where I knew I was either going to be able to hold on to my career as I knew it, or I was going to get my integrity. But I didn't get both because they were at odds. And so I picked integrity, and I picked the communities that I wanted to stand with and by and for. And that was the beginning of the end of my belonging in that community, and then the beginning of something new.
And when you picked integrity, what happened? Obviously letting all of that go, but maybe not on the other side of it, but when it wasn't so fresh and raw for you, what happened to you from choosing integrity?
There was a lot of tears in the fabric for me. Any basic observer could have been watching my career going, oh, she's not long for this world. The things that I would stand for, particularly early on, just Black Lives Matter and anti-racism was very, very challenged inside that community, very defensive. It was virtually entirely white. So all this was beginning to happen. And I kept trying to just patch it up. Like, maybe I'll just duct tape it and be able to hang on a little longer. But for me, ultimately, the nail in the coffin, the one that ripped the fabric in half, was me standing unequivocally with the LGBTQ community, that they are beloved and cherished and just exactly right, and should be received, welcomed, and cherished at every level of a faith community, all the way. Anyhow, that was the deal breaker. And so we did that in a really public way. And so let's see, my books were all pulled off shelves. One of my books, my best-selling book, was put out of print altogether. I know this word's been overused at this point, but I was just very much canceled everywhere. And it was overwhelming. I knew that was coming. I'd seen it happen. It was a very, very predictable response. But I think I wasn't prepared for the severity of it, just the scope of it. I never in my life had so many things written about me and so many sermons delivered about me and everywhere. I'm like, why is this person in Oregon talking about me on her blog? It was just so weird. And it was pretty overwhelming. And so I had a really good friend. How long did that last?
Yeah.
It's a good question. Felt like felt like it lasted in earnest, like an everyday thing, for at least 6 months, and really more like 2 years. So by 2 year mark, it was receding and we were recovering. But if it was just 6 months of just white hot fire. I had a really good friend call me during that season when it was all burning. And she said, I'm going to tell you something that you couldn't know this, and you will know it, but like, she's like, first of all, you're going to rebuild. You are going to rebuild. You're going to rebuild a way more beautiful community, and it'll be gorgeous, and it will be a safe home for so many people, including you. She's like, so don't you worry about that. That's coming for you. But she's like, right now, where you're at, I want you to know that even while everything is on fire, that doing the right thing is its own reward and it's its own comfort. It'll be enough for you even before you get to the rebuilding stage. And she was right. She was right. It was a comfort. And so I told myself, no matter how long this lasts, no matter how terrible it gets, I'm going to stand in this fire. I am not going to walk it back. I am not going to defend it. I'm not going to justify it. I'm not going to try to soft sell it. I am not going to try to patch up my relationship with that community. I'm just going to let it burn, and then we'll see what's left. And so now, oh my gosh, my life feels so expansive, so beautiful, so gorgeous. My only regret is that I didn't get here sooner.
I've heard you tell this story previously. And I remember when you said, my only regret is that I didn't do it sooner.
Yeah.
And I think so many people are living in that space, trying
Yes.
to put patchwork together.
Yes.
They can feel the disconnect happening. And it could be on a micro scale or a macro
Totally.
scale in many areas of their life. And I think,
That's right.
2020 has ripped and shred and
That's right.
shine the light on mirroring back to us a lot of this, and yet staying in the fire. And you said something, I wrote it down. Something about, I wrote safe, including you, creating safety, creating community where you feel safe.
Yes.
How awful is that to be inside of a community?
Yes.
Or a space or a home or anywhere else?
Yes.
You're like, I don't belong here. I don't feel safe here. And creating those sacred spaces for ourselves. And what I'm hearing from you is you knew what needed to happen.
Yeah.
You took that leap. You had to sit in the fire. It had to burn down. And then you were able to rebuild. What does my safety look like? What does my community look like? What do I want to represent? Right. How do I want to show up to these conversations? Who do I want to be? What do I want to represent? And too often, this podcast started because I was talking about conscious parenting, and then just evolved to every aspect of life. Why are we putting ourselves in these little boxes? And one of the questions I wrote down that I wanted to talk about, why do women wear fatigue and struggle as a badge of honor? Why? Why can't we just allow that? Why can't we let that go and say, no more, I will not stand for this anymore?
I know. We have spilled so much ink on this question, and yet here it remains. We're still doing it. We're still playing the game, and the game has no winners. Like, it is a fake game. It's so frustrating. The only option, one thing I'm learning about this. How old are you?
Well, I'm 34, but my soul is it's very old. It is a 71 old soul. It's a very old soul. I'm telling you, probably in the last 5 years, I'm like, okay, they're starting to align, but my friends are all 50.
Are they? That's so cute.
I love wisdom. I love feminine wisdom. That's
so great.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to hear that. Well, I'll be 46 this summer, so I'm almost in your correct age group. I'm getting close. I'm getting close to where I could be a friend candidate. And so I've had my hand at the mom fatigue game for some time. My oldest kid is 22. And I have a lot of kids. He just graduated from college. So I had 2 in college and 2 in high school and 1 in middle. So it's a bunch. And I am no stranger to the who works harder game. And one thing that I think I've just learned at this point, at 46, is that if we are waiting for our cultural markers to change their minds on this, if we are waiting for the narrative outside of us to be like, okay, everybody sit down and relax. Let's get a cup of tea. We are going to change the rules of the game here. We're going to go to the grave. Tired. So this is work it's an inside job. We are the only ones who can pull ourselves out of it. That's it. Like, nobody's going to do it for us. They're going to keep this impossible expectation thing up. And then, of course, I know this is so boring because it's been said so many times, but obviously social media is its partner, because we all just get to curate. I do it. Hell, I do it. We curate what we want everybody else to see. It's everybody's highlight reel. Mm. And so it's not true. It's not true. It's not honest. It really isn't. I mean,
well, I don't even think it could be, to be honest with you. I don't want to, it's exhausting. You know, I have a social media manager. She's like, you got to post this. You got to post this. I'm like, fuck it. I don't want to. I'm like, I'm exhausted this week. I'm not going on my phone. No. And that's okay. That's okay. Like, we're supposed to live our lives off social media. So when you are on it, it's a snippet. It's a snippet. It's not your diary.
That's right. And to be fair, the greater internet world hasn't earned our 100% honesty. That's not necessarily a safe place for us to bring the most tender parts of our stories or our hearts or our experiences. That would be unwise. So it's not as if I am advocating for us just to air it all on Instagram. I mean, terrible, terrible idea. But it is worth noting that thus what we are seeing is not the full story anywhere, but it's somehow, even though we know that, it still affects us. I mean, I can think of a handful of people that I follow on social media right now. And every time I see their stuff, it gives me a feeling of like failure. Like, I'm watching the thing that they're doing and I'm like, mine's not like that. Or my that's not what my marriage is doing, or that's not how my kid is behaving, or whatever. Just pick it. I even know better. Like, I know better. It doesn't matter. It still affects me. And so I think this idea of we are going to change our own story. That's it. That's the only option. And we're going to do that come hell or high water, no matter what anybody else says about it, no matter what they think about it, no matter if every other dear girlfriend in our life is making a different choice for her or for her family or for her kids, that we just have our own integrity. It's kind of that same idea that you and I were just talking about, that I will have integrity in my own values and in the way that I want to create this life that I'm living. And it has to be its own comfort, and it has to be its own reward. And it will be.
I love that. So let's circle back to community and belonging and what that means to you today. And then we're going to talk about the book.
Okay.
And I want to know why this book had to be written. But let's talk about the sense of community now, because I think there is this individualism where you do have to like know yourself and who you want to be and integrity, and then inserting yourself in other community. And I always get this feedback from women of like, we're afraid of each other a little bit, or we don't know where we belong, or we're a chameleon. What does belonging mean to you now?
Yeah, I've really renovated my ideas about community and what that looks like. I think when I was younger, I actually had some sense of comfort from being inside a community that was more fairly homogenous. Something about that felt comforting to me. I'm trying to go back and recall my evaluation of it, but frankly, it's easier to be inside a space where nothing is ever challenged, and nobody really ever breaks rank. And for a while, that sense of certainty was a balm for me until it wasn't. And so I think now what community looks like to me, the more diverse my community is, the prouder I am. So that is a measuring stick for me, that if my community is diversifying, if more and more women feel safe, to use that word earlier, feel safe inside the community that I'm building and creating. I'm doing something right. That is how I want to live. I want to continuously widen the table, pull up more chairs, learn from one another, and listen to wildly different experiences, vastly different perspectives. That to me is what makes us super powerful. And so it has its challenges still. That's not a necessarily easy task. But I think cultivating this, prioritizing connection and dialogue is probably two of my high values. So thus, it's not always just about being right or being the same, but more like, tell me more. Mm-hmm. Tell me more about your experience. Tell me more about what you learned or what you heard. And that to me has created a lot of felt safety and a lot of innovation and connection. Like, it's a great and wondrous good to have a wide table. And so I'll never feel comfortable again at a table that is set with all the same chairs. That is, that's not interesting to me anymore. That's not interesting at all. So I love the community I have now. It's wild. It's really wild. We got some wild women inside of it, and they give me so much delight.
I love it. And I love what you just said about listening. You don't need to have the answers. Just listen and get your shit out of the way, or try your best to just listen and take it in. Absolutely.
Like, and it's a relief, to be honest with you, that you are no longer this like defender of the thing you say, or whatever. Like, it's not even our responsibility. That's not our work at all. So it's kind of a relief to lay that down and release some of the pressure off of discussion and ideas. And what's interesting is that women are very capable of having respectful conversations, never really come to the same conclusion, and nobody dies, right? Onward. Okay, great. Thanks for sharing. This is like interesting to hear your perspective today. Onward.
And we're always planting seeds. I know.
Yeah.
Some of the most amazing connections have come from unique conversations, and you're planting little seeds. You have no idea where that's going to land, even if they're like, thank you so much for sharing. But yet you've just planted a little seed in a fresh mind.
Yep, absolutely. That's mattered to me.
Yeah.
There have been people who've said little things to me 8 years ago. They probably don't even remember. And it was a thing that I just noodled and noodled and noodled and then explored and thought about. And it really bloomed like inside my own life. And so you just never know. You never, ever, ever know. It's a great point.
I love that. So let's talk about the book, because I feel I've just looked at the time. I'm like, dang, our time's going to go quick. Fierce. I'm like, I have it written down because I'm like, the F book. Fierce, free, and full of fire.
Yes, that's it. That's it. And this is really the culmination of everything you and I have been talking about. That's what it is. It's my own march toward freedom and everything that got me here. It's not a memoir. It's not really just about my story, although it's all woven in there. This is more like it's a trail map, if you will, for other women. When I sat down to write it, I was like, how'd I get here? Who got me here? And I made like the most comprehensive list of every resource that meant something to me, every teacher, every bit of wisdom, every book, every template, every single thing that like threw me little lifelines and just tugged me along the river. Like, let's just keep going all the way to free, all the way to whole. And I just shoved it all in this book, every single thing that got me here. So it really is, it's the book that I wish I would have had 5 years ago. When I was piecemealing together the wisdom to deliver me. But honestly, I would have given anything had I read this when I was 20 and built an adult life on integrity. I saved myself a lot of time. And so I love it when I hear from my like 22-year-olds who are reading it. I'm like, yes, 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 yes. Be free right now as you are, who you are. Like, don't buy into the shit that the rest of us did. And now we have to redo it, undo it, and redo it in our 40s. And so it's really exciting.
I feel like I'm right smack dab in the middle of that, because there is this, it's easy to go either way, right? That whole, and yet, Yeah, a lot of the undoing that I'm doing was from this overachieverness because I entered
Oh,
motherhood from a place of being a teen mom and feeling like a failure already. So then I
sure.
had to reverse, like, overcompensating for that. I am
Mm,
enough. I am enough. And then, of course, unpacking before us. And
mm.
like you said, or kind of how we open this conversation is this is our work to do, right? There's
That's
no
right.
blame game here. This is our
That's
work
right.
to do. And the next generation is just going to be a little bit lighter, and they're going to have their
Yep.
own shit to work on.
Oh, it's so true. My daughter, my second kid is 20, and she is a junior in college, and her friends are like miraculous. When I look at the way they are in the world, how self-aware they are, how deeply attuned they are to what they want and need, how engaged they are in the world, and kind of how unafraid they are, I'm like, oh my gosh, here they come. Like, here they come. They're ready.
Mm-hmm.
They've done a lot of this already. And I think that's because our generation has done a lot of this work. And then we raised them. And so
Well, they
I think
watch too.
they watch,
They're
they
like,
see us.
I don't want to do that. Do
They
the
see us
opposite. Yeah.
reclaiming our own lives right now
Yeah.
as grown-ups. And that means something to them. And so every generation is going to be a little bit more free than the one before them. And that thrills me to death. Absolutely to death. I've always said on Fierce, my absolute goal for it is that it becomes totally obsolete. That, like, in 10 years people are reading this going, why were women having to work through this? Like, why were they in bondage? Why couldn't they just live in their own skin, have agency over their own lives? That would be so exciting for me, is if this book just seems weird someday. Like, well, they were really messed up back then.
I have one more question to ask you. What would you say to your first time mom self?
Oh, I feel so tender towards her. When I think of her, I have so much compassion. I was 23
Mm-hmm.
when I had my first kid. So I was a young mom, and I was one of the first in my crew to be a mom. And then I had them all in a row, like every other year. So I was 26 with 3 kids.
Wow.
And I feel so much love for her because I thought I was doing a terrible job. I thought everything was doomed, that nothing was going to last. They were all going to jail. Like, I was a terrible mother. I didn't have enough for anybody. Oh my gosh, the amount of time I spent inside a sense of failure makes me so sad. So I would go back to her and I would be like, you are doing the most beautiful job. Like, these kids are so loved, and you are giving them a sense of safety and security, which is going to matter a million times more than all the little shit that keeps going wrong every day. That just happens because they're 2. Right. And so I would love to go back and tell her, wait till you see how these kids turn out, man. Like, they're going to wow you, So, to all the young moms, you're just doing a gorgeous job. You really are. And you'll be proud of this one day. So I hope that you can interrupt the trajectory of I'm doing terribly and I'm failing right now, and look at yourself every single day and be like, you are killing it. Like, you are killing. Look, they're all alive. They maybe even got a bath. They're fed. They are cherished. And that matters. Those kids have an internal security that I cannot put a price on. So loved kids, that's it. That's our bar. Yeah. Everything else, nothing else matters. Almost nothing else matters. It doesn't matter. It doesn't last. It doesn't stick. All the stuff that you're like replaying, I did a terrible job of that. They don't remember any of it.
Yeah.
They just remember I was loved.
I love that. And I mean, that's a constant reminder to ourselves every day. I am enough. I'm doing enough. Oh. And when COVID hit, people were like, what do I do? School, I'm working. I said, my goal is to yell less, like to not yell, and to just, I want my children to feel like they are loved and fed. Right. And the bath thing, got a little warmer. The pool opened up. You just jumped in the pool. I'm like, did you brush your teeth lately? But, you feel loved, right? Like, you feel safe in this home. I'm like, that's truly all that matters.
It is. It's real. Yeah. It's so real. That's what sticks. And It creates a resiliency inside of our kids that nothing else can. Not any amount of advantages, not putting them in all the right clubs or whatever the hell, like none of that matters. That this is the only thing that builds something strong in them for the long haul. And so that's what moms are doing. Somebody told me one time, if you're worried about being a bad mom, that tells me you're a good one.
Exactly.
You care, you're paying attention, you're all in. And so I'm really proud of this community of young moms. They're just fantastic. They're out there slaying.
I love it. So I could talk to you forever, Jen Hatmaker. Thank you. Where can people find you? I know you have like a online book club. What else you got going on?
I just have so many irons in the fire. I'm the only Jen Hatmaker I know. So that's my website. I'm the only Jen Hatmaker on social media. You can find me there. My community is largely located on social media. It's so fun. It's so vibrant. It's full of life. Come join us. It's fantastic. And I have all kinds of podcast book. Just go to Jen Hatmaker.
Okay.
Delighted to welcome them in.
Can you explain to me, because you have like a book club membership, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Can you explain this to me?
Yep. It's almost like a subscription box for a book club. And so you sign up and every month you get your box and it's got gifts in it plus your book. And then we have this incredible book club community. So we've got this private group and then we have local chapters everywhere. They get together every single month, all over the United States. And we get a dedicated podcast with that book's author every single month and tons of digital resources. It's just the most fun thing in the world. We just read Anything is Possible by Elizabeth Strout. And I got to talk to her, and here she is, just a Pulitzer Prize winner, just talking to me right in my ears. And I'm like, well, this is fantastic. Yep.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm excited to hear what the ladies have to say about this episode.
Thanks for having me on. I was just delighted to talk to you today.